Okay, I think we can go ahead and start. Good afternoon and warm welcome to everybody. I'm super happy that we had so many people register for our Crypto 101 Start Smart webinar, and we have and continue having people log in. But I think we can go ahead and start. My name is Pavla, and I am a representative of Expats.cz and also an organizer of this event. Before I hand over to our speakers, let me give you a few notifications or a few notes. The webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing the recording with you in the next few days. We will also share a short survey, and we would like to ask you to please give us your feedback, as we want to continue giving or bringing you new, exciting, relevant, and good quality events in the future as well. I received many questions from you, and I shared them with our speakers. I certainly hope that they will be able to answer many of them, but in case they don't have time to answer everything, please don't hesitate to reach out to them after this event. I will be sharing their contact information as well. Your mics are muted, but there is a Q&A box in the Zoom here, and you can also place your questions there, and the box will be monitored as well. Before or without further delay, let me hand over to our moderator and host of today's event, Michaela Malatin. So, Misha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paula, and welcome everyone for this session today, Crypto 101. It will be approximately 2 hours packed with information about crypto, about DeFi, and also the legal aspects of this industry. We see that this is important to have this knowledge nowadays with the landscape of different changes, economics in the world. So this is something like basics for you to know maybe about investments or about the communities and why is everyone speaking about meme coins, and what are the things you can learn to grow professionally or like in your like assets portfolio. This session, I would like to ask also to be still muted. When you have, and Pablo already said that, please raise your hand if you have any questions. And I would like to present our two speakers we have today. And it is David and Jan. And I will introduce them in a way I remember them from different venues because we all are like one community. So how I know them, and then you will see great presentations they will provide to us. So first is David. David is now in Singapore, so it's almost midnight for him. And I remember him like 40 years ago, we met at Ethereum Brno, and he's OG since then for DeFi, for smart contracts. He worked on like interesting projects in great companies. He also wrote a book, Coinbase. So check the website and see what he's put together. Is like really end to end, all the information you might need to know about crypto, about communities, and all the aspects of that. And we have also Honza Zibner, who is he's co-founding member of Artifine, and he is a legal guru in AI and in the blockchain. And we met in very interesting projects about NFTs, mostly for House of Lobkowitz or DM. DM drogeries, you might know that you see it everywhere in the Czech Republic. And he will have also his part for the legal and maybe about taxes as well. And I will introduce briefly myself. I will be host for you today, and my name is Misha Malatin, and I'm in Web3 and in crypto for the last years as guys as well as like mentor and leading different communities to grow the knowledge, to grow the experience of various groups, and mostly women mentor them in this area for the some financial intelligence. For not prolonging this, I will give a stage to David about his first presentation, and enjoy it, guys. It's really a friendly environment. If you have any questions, raise your hand or use the Q&A, and we will, after presentations, have also the panel discussion, sorry. So with both guys, so stay tuned for the next 2 hours. So David, it's yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Misha, for the nice intro. So let me share the slides, which you should be able to see by now. Okay, so let me know if you don't see it. Okay. Um, Great. So I'll be talking a little bit about DeFi. I assume most of the people have heard of Bitcoin and probably also some other cryptocurrencies. I'm not sure how many people have heard about DeFi and what it means. It stands for decentralized finance. And today I'm gonna talk a little bit more about how and why it's relevant for, especially for people who move and travel a lot internationally, expats and digital nomads, which is like a group that is increasingly getting bigger. I think the number of people estimated in being, in the group of digital nomads is now between like 20 and 40 million. Even though on this slide I have just below 20, but I see multiple sources. Cool. So what is DeFi? When we say this magical keyword DeFi, we usually mean like basically new financial system that is being built in parallel to the traditional finance system, which is also known as TradFi. And this system basically it contains similar sets of services that you probably have already known from traditional finance. But the big difference here is that all these financial services are served to you by just a piece of code. And this code is not stored on a single server that is owned by any single entity or company, but it's actually deployed on a very decentralized network, which we also call blockchain, which contains tens of thousands of different computers around the world. So it's like a huge, big global computer where anybody can deploy financial, or not only financial, but any other kind of applications as well. And anybody in the world can also use them as long as they have the access to the internet. So that's one beautiful, huge, ever-growing ecosystem that we are going to focus on now. And we will go a little bit further into more details because I think probably for people who haven't encountered DeFi previously, it might be a little bit too abstract. And I think this chart nicely summarizes some basic fundamental differences between traditional finance and DeFi as well. So in traditional finance, you probably usually have money in some custodian, which means like bank or broker. And maybe some of you know that actually, usually when you hold money in a bank, legally the money is not yours, but it's like a liability that you have against the bank. And this can play out differently, as in the history we have learned many times. And there's a big difference in DeFi. So in DeFi, you hold everything directly. I mean, ideally, you can also not do that way, but I highly recommend to learn and study it deep enough so you can actually hold all the assets yourself. And then you can become your own bank, which has some pros and some cons as well. But the point is, you hold everything yourself, and you are interacting with pieces of code, which we called in this case smart contracts. In traditional finance, usually use what we call fiat currency, so Czech crown, euros, dollars. In DeFi, we use cryptocurrencies that are pegged to these national currencies, and we call them usually stable coins. And as I already kind of indicated, I think the biggest difference is that whereas traditionally you are served by a big bank, financial institution, in DeFi you are literally just interacting with some piece of code, smart contract that is functionally doing the same thing as the application of the bank, but the difference is that the backend is the difference. It's distributed over the network of thousands of computers around the world. And one of the nice benefits of this setup is that unlike the traditional financial institutions that work usually or don't work over the weekends, DeFi is always up and running, and you can send transactions to anybody in the world in a matter of a few seconds from one side of the world to another. And it definitely also costs you less typically, especially if you are doing transcontinental payments, which can be still quite a huge pain in the ass when you do it through traditional routes. Also, another nice feature of this is like traditional financial industry institutions are typically audited by third parties. In the past I used to work as an IT auditor for banks in one of the big four companies, so I kind of know the process, and I can just tell you that I don't think based on what I know and my experience, I would not trust these audits that much. So I think it's really nice that in DeFi, we don't actually need to rely and trust the institutions, because most of the code is open source and it's like deployed on blockchain. It's very transparent. Anybody can usually see the code, how it works, and anybody who understands the programming language. But of course, even though maybe you per se don't understand the language and the coding, there are lots of people around the world who look at this very regularly and can audit it for you. And so that's actually usually also the best practice. Like many of the DeFi applications are very often and very regularly audited by multiple independent audit agencies and companies. So the level of security is, I think, much higher, and also the level of trust, because you don't like there's the need for trust is very much mitigated because of this setup. There are some differences compared to TradFi, especially when we talk about lending. I will touch to this a little bit later. And there a huge difference is also probably in the risk profile of these services. Whereas in TradFi, most of the services are very secure and reliable and have been in operation for a long time. In DeFi, the whole industry is very new. It's like barely like 5 years old, I would say. So most of the apps that are there have been created quite recently, and even though it's getting better in the last years, it's still, the truth is that it's still quite risky to interact with some of the apps, especially the new ones. But I think we can already say there are already a couple applications that are considered generally very safe, and there is a very low chance of hacks and vulnerabilities in the code, even though still I think from time to time it hits the news and you can read about it, I think, a lot recently as well. Not so recently that much anymore, but I think maybe still like 2-3 years ago it was very, very often phenomenon. Cool. So just to sum it up, the differences. So DeFi works on the blockchain networks through the smart contracts that are like self-executing code deployed on these networks. And the biggest difference compared to TradFi is the accessibility 24/7. It never sleeps, no holidays, and global availability. So anybody in the world can use it from any country, which is also like a big difference in the TradFi. Oftentimes, if you want to send payment to, I don't know, Nigeria or Iran, you probably can't really do it at all with traditional finance institutions, whereas in DeFi, it's very easy. Cool. And how and why it applies to experts and digital nomads specifically? When, as I said, DeFi is basically a parallel financial system. So let's say it's less monitored in a way and than the traditional financial system. So it can help you out. I've been nomading for the last couple of years, and I know like a lot of people are taking advantage of some of the features of DeFi, because it might not directly help you, for example, in tax optimization, but there are, let's say, you have some ways to work around the traditional rules. For example, some of the countries that like even I think in many countries in Asia have the rules that, for example, if you don't have to tax your foreign income unless you remit it into the country, which means like unless you wire it to your local bank account, let's say in Malaysia. And so of course, if you use DeFi, if you use stable coins, it's very hard for any financial and tax authorities to say or like identify when you are remitting money into the country. And therefore you can like easily then swap it for cash in the country and let's say you don't have to tax it, even though according to law you should, but it's very hard to enforce it, and it's very hard to find out about it for any authorities. Lower fees I already mentioned, especially for the transcontinental payments. Lending, I think it's a very useful feature of DeFi, especially probably for people if you move to a new country and you don't have a history, and perhaps you have employment, like you're still maybe working remote for a foreign company. It's typically quite hard to get a loan or mortgage. And in DeFi, you can do it instantly almost, even though it does work a little bit differently, that usually you need to have already some assets that you can provide as a collateral. But there are no credit checks. So if you have the assets, you can do the loan much more easily compared to traditional financial system. And of course, DeFi is, because it's decentralized, there are no institutions, there's no reporting that they need to do. So there are no KYC checks, no AML checks, and no the annoying proof of address that is required most of the time in any centralized financial institutions. So as I said, the lending is like one of the big advantage in the DeFi. For example, in many countries, if you are selling crypto for fiat currency, it's a tax event. You should tax the profit you make on that trade, and that's why many times it's much more favorable for many people to actually not do the sales, but just the asset, the land against the assets you have in DeFi, and so if you have, for example, €1,000 worth of Ether, and you want to buy a new computer, you don't want to sell that Ether, but you can use it as a collateral in a lending app, and you can borrow stablecoins against that Ether, and you can just buy the computer, and you just can slowly or basically anytime repay it in the future, with of course some interest rate on top. But the point is that you are not causing the tax event. You don't have to tax liquidation of your Ether asset, and it's much better for you. That's especially valid for the countries with high taxes on crypto. And basically how the lending apps work, they are very, usually I think by now they're pretty easy to use. It's very instant. You basically just provide collateral, and in a minute you can withdraw the stable coins. I do use these services myself a lot for different purposes. Oftentimes, so you need to have the collateral, but once you do have it, the rates are pretty competitive. I think many times, especially like, of course, if we compare it with mortgages, it's a little bit different. Even though I do know quite a few people who use these loans as a mortgage and to buy some apartment in some exotic countries where it was very hard for them to actually get the mortgage. But if you compare it with regular consumer loans, the rates probably in DeFi can be even better. It also depends on like which asset actually you are borrowing. And it's very instant, so you provide the collateral and you get the money out of it in a few minutes. So that's kind of nice. And oftentimes you basically don't have the monthly installments when you repay, but basically, you can not repay for a year, and then you can just repay it all at once, or whatever suits your needs. So it's, I think, pretty comfy as well. Good. So that was like a high-level overview and theory of DeFi. So it would be probably, here's like more hands-on recommendations when you want to start with any of these tools. So typically, your first thing you need is a wallet. There are 3 wallets that are here on this slide: MetaMask, Rabi, and Trust Wallet. Even though I would probably recommend just mostly the one of them, which is Rabi Wallet. I think that's probably now currently the best one. Ideally, you want to use this in combination with hardware wallet like Trezor, which is like famously from Prague as well. Great Czech company. or you can also use different hardware wallets, but Trezor is pretty good. Once you have this, you probably need to do what we call on-ramp, which means that you have to, wire your bank money to some exchange and exchange it for Bitcoin or other crypto. There are lots of venues where you can do it. In Czech Republic, CoinMate is a pretty decent option. If you want to go for more international companies, it's Coinbase or Kraken are decent options as well. So by telling you about DeFi, I'm not, necessarily encourage you to invest into cryptocurrencies, because you can use these stable coins which are pegged to dollar or euro, typically to dollar, like USDC, USDT, Ethena, or DAI, which are like one of the top stable coins on the market right now. And if you go to any exchange, you can usually buy at least one of them there. And if you are, for example, having also a company that you use for consulting or something like that, doesn't matter basically where the company is based, whether it's like, if you have US LLC or just like a European entity, there are a bunch of tools that you can actually use to, basically that allow you to convert your payments from your clients that are in euros or dollars to convert it into crypto. So you as a business basically directly, can receive crypto, and you don't even need to have a bank account for a company, which can be pretty useful. I think in Czech Republic is not so relevant right now that much, I think, but for example, in the neighboring country, in Slovakia, there is this new very annoying tax, transaction tax that just came into effect like last week, and the whole country is very angry about it, and it annoys all the basically corporations. But basically, any wire transaction is now being taxed, and this is one of the very beautiful ways how to avoid it. Of course, according to the law, you should self-report it. It's the same for the taxes. If you realize any, capital gains in crypto, in DeFi, you should self-report it. If you don't do it, there is a low chance that somebody finds out, actually, at least for now. Cool. So some principles to follow when you are starting up. Definitely always like try to stay very secure. Use the hardware wallets ideally, especially if you want to work with some bigger amounts of money. If you are just starting with something very small, which is definitely recommended for beginning, you don't need a hardware wallet. You can just play around and see for yourself. And once you decide to go in more with bigger resources, take the hardware wallet. Ideally, probably you don't want to also have everything in one basket. For example, for lending, there are like multiple different protocols that are battle tested, I would say, and considered secure. One of them is Aave, another one is Compound, and so you can use them, and there are many different DEXs. So if you use these protocols, you probably also want to a little bit diversify, but only into those secure ones. I usually don't recommend to interact with protocols that are on the market less than, let's say, 2 years at least, right? So, which is many, because it's very new in industry. And of course, once you do, it's definitely desirable to a little bit, learn more about it and stay informed about what's happening. Cool. When it comes to legal and tax considerations, I think I mentioned quite a bunch of them. Obviously, taxes are one very frequent question and topic when it comes to crypto. Where you are tax resident legally, that's where you should, file your taxes. Also, when it comes to crypto, disclaimer: I'm not a tax advisor, but that's usually the common rule. As I said, it's good that you can have the self-custody. You can also, many people, of course, still do use exchanges and crypto exchanges where they leave some of the money and assets, and maybe you can also use lending there. It's not usually my recommendation. my recommendation is usually to get the hardware wallet and try to learn how to do it yourself. Because if you leave it on the exchange, there's a financial institution, they will report it. So it's more comfortable, but it comes with strings attached. And of course, they will do the KYC on you and all these things. When you use DeFi, there is no KYC there, even though you should self-report if you realize any capital gains. And yeah, it's increasingly more popular to also use so-called flag theory, especially for the nomads, but like not necessarily, and that means basically to consider acquiring some second residencies that could, help you also optimize your tax exposure in a legal way. And maybe just a small glimpse into the future of DeFi. Especially in the last couple months, there was a huge, Cambrian explosion of different AI agents that mostly are useless, but some of them are useful. And I believe there will be more and more useful tools coming up in DeFi as well. And essentially, it allows you to automate a lot of, transactions in DeFi. When we talk about lending, probably there will be a bunch of tools that will help you to basically automate any aspects of your lending, positions, manage risk maybe, because as I said, you have to have a collateral that you put, in the custody of the protocol, and when the value of your collateral is changing, when it's volatile, there is a theoretical chance that you can get liquidated. And it's good to be able to manage it, and this is something that you can definitely automate as well. There is this new trend, I would say, real world assets tokenization, which means essentially that we will see more and more types of different assets from the real physical world being tokenized on the blockchain and being used in DeFi. This could mean fractional real estate, vehicles, like art, stocks, and equity of different companies around the world. So all these things are being attempted to tokenize in different degree of success in different parts of the world. And what is also very interesting, some of the when you have money in the bank, usually the interest rate that you can get on it's very low. In DeFi, it's definitely higher. So it's a very different experience when you hold euros in your bank account versus when you hold USD denominated stablecoin in DeFi, where you can oftentimes have like maybe from 6 to 12, sometimes even more percent annually, with different like risk profiles. So it's good to be aware of what's happening, where is the yield coming from, to understand the mechanics. But like there's a lot of very interesting opportunities there. And of course, the biggest proposition of the whole DeFi thing is that it can connect actually in terms of finances, like the whole world. There is still like a huge population on the world that is unbanked. It's more than 1 billion people. And to them, DeFi can actually, provide access to capital markets, to lending as well, and to, a plethora of different financial services that are unavailable to them right now. Yeah, so just to maybe sum up how to start, as I said, create the wallet, MetaMask or Rabby, start to go to Aave or Compound, go to Uniswap where you can exchange different assets. And unless you don't have any crypto like yet, then you probably need to go to traditional crypto exchange and exchange a small part of it. If you don't want to invest, if you don't necessarily believe in Bitcoin or Ether, you can just simply swap it for stablecoins. So you're basically, stable in terms of value, and you can just then deploy it to different protocols. And of course, then you can slowly expand and maybe join different communities. If you want to like subscribe to probably some newsletters, I would recommend, for example, Bankless. It's pretty good for, I think, most of the people who just want to stay up to date about the current trends. Okay, great. That will be probably everything from my side. As Misha said, I wrote a book. It's called Coin Story. You can read it freely. It's all available on coinstory.tech. So it's about history of cryptocurrencies and its evolution. So basically, you can read about everything what happened before Bitcoin and also after the emergence of Bitcoin until the year of 2022, where the book got published. So feel free to read that. And in case you would have any other questions and wanted to reach out to me, my website is davidstancer.com. Yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ravi. Do we have any questions right now in the group of attendees? I might ask. There is one, and it is a bit more like eco. Is it correct that cryptocurrencies use a huge amount of energy and are not eco-friendly?
Yeah, so not anymore, I would say. It's correct only for Bitcoin. So if people are care much about eco-friendliness of crypto, then you can maybe skip Bitcoin, even though I would say it's a design feature of Bitcoin. It's not a waste. But the point is, yeah, Bitcoin is using a lot of energy. Other blockchains and cryptocurrencies are not, basically. So Bitcoin is still basically is the only one left that is actually using a lot of energy.
Maybe I have some question for David. You were talking about interesting parts, interesting perspective on the cryptocurrencies, and thank you as well for the legal insights, because I have nothing to add to it, so I can skip my part basically. But as you were discussing the tax differences between the countries regarding their perspective towards cryptocurrencies, can you name maybe some like extreme opposites of approach towards cryptocurrency taxes, like because in the Czech Republic we've had some novelty, there is this time test and so on, but are there any like extreme opposites for the digital nomads to bear in mind?
Yeah, it's probably not so hard, especially since I'm from Slovakia. I think Slovakia is probably the one of the worst taxation hells when it comes to crypto. I think the final rate can reach up to 40%,
Yes.
because you have all this health insurance on top. So it's pretty annoying. And when it comes to good countries for crypto, I think amongst the digital nomad community, like there are a lot of countries that have like territorial taxation, which are popular, which basically means also, for example, Singapore, Malaysia, Paraguay, Georgia, when it comes to Europe. So there are quite a few countries in the world, and within EU, I think Slovenia was. I'm not sure they didn't change it, but I think at least in the past they used to have also zero if you hold long term.
It's not anymore.
Yeah, I think I changed. They changed it recently. I just don't know what's the latest rate. But actually, right, Czech Republic is a good one as well, right? If you hold 3 years in Czech Republic, as the new law, then no tax or zero tax on that. So the Czech Republic is pretty good in this regard too.
Yeah. I think from my perspective as a lawyer and crypto lawyer, I think that actually Czech Republic is one of the tax heavens, actually, especially in the European Union, comparing to Slovakia, Germany, and so on. Yeah. So agree. And I have had another question too. You are talking about no KYC and AML needed for users to use some platforms, right, and so on. If you would think about a situation that there could be some attendees who are just super basic in crypto, or they are new to crypto, would you recommend them to use actually the platform with no KYC and no AML, or would you recommend them more to use the KYC based platforms like Binance and so on? Because from the legal certainty perspective, from some belief perspective towards the service and service provider, it's much easier to onboard on KYC based platform, right?
Actually, yeah, I think my recommendation usually is actually to on-ramp KYC based services. So I don't think it's actually a bad idea to have also proof of resources. Because once you go to KYC, institution, you can also basically then very easily, declare and verify with your bank wires. So once in the future, if you think about future, like, maybe like in 10 years, you will want to sell Bitcoin or whatever, it will be, valuable, and you want to buy a house. So if you want to cash it out, bank will want to know where the resource is coming from. And if you do it in a KYC like institution, it's much more easy for you to know, to show them like, hey, I wired money there. You can export the transactions. That being said, I advise to buy there, not trade there. Maybe use different exchanges for trading, and it's kind of more complicated setup to use it very efficiently. But I think one to buy and leave the exchange, I think it's pretty okay procedure from my perspective.
Yeah, I agree. My point to it is that actually, for people to generally accept some technological phenomena, and some new technicalities like AI, blockchain, and whatever, is that it needs to be the piece of evolution, not revolution, basically. Because just to say to people, hey, this is a new platform where you can invest your money, you can put all your money in there, but no KYC, no AML, no ID needed. The people are just set up, they won't believe in that. If it would be like similar from the UX UI perspective to any other bank account, if it would be similar for providing the documentations and so on, like trading 1-to-1 basically platform, they would be more believe and more up to invest the money in there and so on, because it's much more similar to something they already know, right? So this evolution perspective is
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if people, I think anybody who wants to use DeFi, there will be some recalibrating needed in terms of their brain, how they perceive and understand maybe the world of finance in general. So it's definitely a process, and it might take some time. And it takes some time to get accustomed, like that things in DeFi do work a little bit differently, and so.
Agree. It's about the change of paradigm, basically, like changing, traveling by uh, petrol cars and electric cars. The paradigm of traveling is completely different, because you cannot go as far with electric car as with the petrol car, and you just need to regularly stop and so on. And it needs the people to change their thinking about the traveling by car and so on. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so Jose, I gave you the floor now, I think, and I'm not sharing the slides hopefully anymore. So I think floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you to Misha for introducing me. Maybe Misha, do you want to say something in between me and David, or am I supposed to continue right away?
You can continue. There is one question from Dimitris, but we can have it at the end.
Okay. In that case, let me share the screen. Nice. Okay, so once again, thank you for your attending this webinar, and I will continue with some legal insights into the crypto assets landscape, because what I do basically on the daily basis is that I try to help people as well as projects, and corporations with their understanding of the crypto assets, of the Web3 ecosystem, and I try to help them with aligning their legal policies with the expectations of regulators and expectations of the users and so on. I'm not here to discuss the individual topics in depth, because I think that if we are supposed to talk about the basics, it would be totally enough. And I'm here more to discuss the most hot topics and the narratives which are current right now. So, as the first topic, and what we need to start with is, and let me just pass the slides, is the in general, the influence and the relationship between law and cutting edge technologies like the crypto definitely is, because In general, what is the biggest issue and why it is challenging for us lawyers and for the users and for people in general is that we have some law, we are used to do something basically in some way, and then there is this cutting edge technology which is kind of specific, and it's different if we apply the law as we know it towards the norms, towards the crypto assets, towards AI and other technological phenomena, or if we take the law as we know it and we will slightly adapt it towards the crypto technologies, because there are some individualities, there are some aspects which need to be covered slightly differently, and it really depends on what their influence and relationship is. In general, or generally speaking, what is the difficult and the most challenging way for us lawyers is actually to understand what the crypto basically is, not from the user perspective, not from the perspective of economical theorists, not from the perspective of regulators, but from the perspective of law. If it's a thing, or if it's an asset, if it's some relationship, if it's some right or something like this, because after the legal classification is done, then we can apply the norms on it, and we can move towards the legal application itself. What is needed to be said is that generally technological phenomena, are evolving, and they are evolving very fast. We have AI, we have other cutting-edge technologies like the crypto, we have a lot of other stuff, and they have something in common, and that is that actually law is not able to react on them in one-to-one basis. Basically, the law is used to react ex post, and it means that there is some time actually passing between we know the technology, we use it, it's hype and so on, and between the law actually reacts and will provide us with some regulation and with some policies of how to handle it and so on. The legal classifications, for example, of assets, of tokens, it's so challenging that we don't know basically what is the right way of how to handle it. We just have some interpretation, we just have some understanding of it, and we rely on the judicial decisions right now, which can help them to kind of see in the future of how the courts will be handling all the issues, all the legal claims and so on. It has also, the impact on the calculations of your taxes, on the accounting and so on. If it can be understood as security, then it can have some influence of some security market and some regulation towards it. And it's really hard to actually understand it. It's so hard that even right now, if you would have some legal case in court to be decided, legal court, and you just cannot expect the judge to understand it. Like it's completely nonsense. What they would do is actually they would ask someone for some expert opinion just for them to be able to understand it, and with the most probability they would dismiss the case for some formality because they don't have capacity to decide on it, because they don't understand it. If there would be any case and there were some people who actually tried to put some legal claims, on remuneration of tokens, of stealing NFTs, and so on. If such a case will appear in front of the judge, the situation is so complicated that it just it cannot be successful right now, and that's kind of an issue, because as we were talking about the legal application itself. What is important to bear in mind is that we have some norms, we have some civil code, we have some norms like that, and we are just in the middle of some effort for application of the civil codes and of the European norms, basically towards the crypto right now, because we have these MiCA and so on. But I want to say one thing, and that's that we are used to use the internet, basically all of us in here, and we are some, I would say, basic users mostly, And we are used to, for example, return the goods if we order it from the internet in this 14 days period. But if you will order some NFTs, if you will buy anything or trade some crypto assets on the launch pads or on the OpenSea, basically, from the legal perspective in general, it's totally the same as if you are buying some mobile phone from Alza. But from the technical perspective, just to return the NFT and claim someone to return you the money back, it's complete nonsense. And right now, what we as lawyers need to do, we just need to find the truth behind it, and we just need to decide what is the best way of what is the compromise solution if you are in the position of claim the money back, or if you are in the situation that you just lost the money if the NFT is useless, and so on. And that's maybe the reason why crypto and Web3 ecosystem is actually the gray area right now, because you are very uncertain about the application of legal norms. If you have some legal certainty, what you can, what you cannot do, and so on. What is the most hot topic right now, or one of them maybe, is the real world assets. And real world assets in the relation to IP rights. David was already talking about the real world assets, and he said that we are just waiting basically for what we will be doing with it, how the legislation will handle it, and so on. And these tokenized real world assets, are right now in the form of real estates as well as cards, other assets, maybe some tokenized shares. And what they have in common is that they have very, very bad sound right now. If you are from the Czech Republic, I believe you are very well known of Xixoyo for the tokenized shares. You are very well of other efforts to tokenize basically anything. And these companies always end in bankruptcy because people don't trust in it, because the regulators are trying to kind of boycott it, and they try to kind of ruin the efforts and kind of stay in between of them and some progress. I don't think it's a good situation right now for it. On the other hand, what is the best part of real world assets is that from the perspective of Czech National Bank, they are kind of similar to participations, which means that it's a gray zone. Czech National Bank has just some recommendations for you, like, hey, don't use it if you don't do your research. Be aware that it can be kind of tricky, kind of risky. And if you use it, just bear in mind that you are on your own in it, basically. And that's everything Czech National Bank is doing about it right now. We don't have a specific regulation, we don't have a specific expectations to be covered, and we don't have any legal certainty in it. That's maybe the reason why it is so interesting right now. But from the perspective of enforceability, from the perspective of legal certainty, it's something which cannot be recommended right now. There are some tendencies as well as efforts on the EU level to cover the insecurities and maybe some slight misunderstandings in this area, but we will see like in a half year or a year or something like this. What is, from my perspective, the most important in here is that there are some IP rights to be covered in the real world assets, because it really doesn't depend if you are just in the stage of digitalization, if you just scan the Eiffel Tower and you will prepare some 3D model online. They have some IP rights. There are some IP rights for the Eiffel Tower as well as for the lightning on the top of the tower. And there are a lot of questions which would need to be covered if you do such a thing. After you digitize something, then you can move to the second stage, which is virtualization, which means that you can use or allow the users to use the 3D model, the 3D scan, without any implications towards the real estate, basically. It means that they are separated, they are independent, and they can be used. What it means is that if you create it, you just need to be super clear that you can do so. You can provide users with the rights to do so. You can provide them with the license and so on. And after this is cleared, and usually from my experience, this is like super hard for a lot of projects to have covered. After this is cleared, then you can tokenize the asset. It means that you can connect this virtual asset with some tokenization, with some certification on the blockchain, with some ID of that kind. You can implement some tokenomics model into it, and that's another super hard area you just need to cover. Right now, I'm aware of some projects which are trying to be successful in the area of real world assets. On the other hand, I was asked to provide expert opinion towards the bankruptcy of one tokenization investment fund in the Czech Republic a few weeks ago, and it's kind of sad to see that actually there is a lot of projects who try to just provide the users with pump and dump schemes, basically, and with the pyramid schemes, and they kind of create this gray area. They kind of create the awareness and the situation that people are basically afraid of investing in something like this, and their intention is not as clear as it should be, and it's really, really needed for people to understand. And these stuff like investing into real world assets as well into the other crypto projects is super tricky. They just need to do their own research, and because of lack of any regulation or any relevant legislation, this is something which can be super tricky. And as I said a few minutes ago, Czech National Bank is here just to recommend you to not use it, basically. So be aware. The next hot topic, which is here right now, is the MiCA. MiCA is a new normative. I believe that every single person in here, every attendee has already heard about MiCA. MiCA is right now super hype, as it was with GDPR 5-7 years ago, something like this. It's here to cover the blank spaces, the empty spaces of regulation. It's here to adapt the regulations, basically, which need to be adapted towards the crypto, because crypto can be specific kind of technology, as I said at the beginning. What is not so great about MiCA is that MiCA brings some kind of centralization towards decentralized ecosystem, basically. We can start with saying that MiCA is trying to cover you with some licensing, and not licensing like in the IP meaning, but with licensing of some regulation acceptance of your project, with some permission of you to provide the services and so on, because there are some crypto asset service providers and so on which need to have a specific permission. And then there is this MiCA which can says what permission you need to be provided with and what basic activities you can provide to the users. What is tricky in here is this AML. I think right now MiCA is more of a scarecrow for the users and for the service providers, even though I don't think it's so super hard to meet the requirements. On the other hand, for example, USDT stopped being supported by Binance as well as by, for example, Anycoin in the Czech Republic, because they were not able, or to be more precise, they didn't want to meet actually the MiCA requirements, because MiCA requirements kind of needs and pushes you towards the transparency of basically your project, for the white papers, for the tokenomical models, for having IP rights fully compliant and so on. What is actually funny about MiCA is that MiCA says that if you want to provide the services of crypto assets providing and so on, or trading, exchanging, etc., in the European Union, you just need to have this MiCA permittance. You just need to have MiCA permission to being able to do so. But it says that basically, as you have European Union in this unified market model, there is this free movement of capital, of people, of services, etc. You just need to choose one state you will be based in the European Union, and you can ask European Union or the committee, to be precise, to allow you to provide the services in crypto area based on the requirements of that nation, of that state, and on the requirements provided by European Union on the two levels. It means, and therefore I was asking David on the extreme opposites in the European Union, it means that if you are trying to run the business in MiCA compliance way, you need to choose the tax effective member state of the European Union, basically, and from that state to try to ask European Committee to provide you with the permission, basically. It means that if you are smart, you will be based in the Czech Republic or something like this, and from the Czech Republic you will be, driving your business, you will be providing the services and so on. And I don't speak about the Czech Republic like in coincidence, because maybe you noticed, but Czech Republic, through the financial arbitrage and other registration and regulation bodies, is trying to actually push Binance, for example, to be based in the Czech Republic. So they will be asking for MiCA compliant license from the Czech Republic. It would mean that on one hand, Binance would be super happy to be in the European Union because it would be compliant, and on the other hand, it would mean for the Czech Republic to have the income from all the taxes provided by Binance, because it would be taxed in the Czech Republic. So it would be kind of win-win scenario. On the other hand, AML in the Czech Republic, and that's the reason why I'm talking about it, AML in the Czech Republic is one of the most difficult, one of the most strict, one of the most detailed. And actually, that's the reason why, for example, a few years ago, this Porsche NFT project was provided globally, with a few exceptions, like the Czech Republic, because they were not able to meet the AML requirements, and they were not able to meet the requirements of Know Your Customer, KYC, as well as anti-money laundering policies, which is, as I said, super strict in the Czech Republic. You need to provide the customers with full due diligence, with the transaction monitoring, with a suspicious transaction reporting. You just need to have a full record keeping, internal compliance controls, and so on. And you just don't need to be based in the Czech Republic. Totally enough is if you are focused on the Czech Republic market and Czech Republic users. So that's maybe the opposite argument towards why to be actually based in the Czech Republic. Regarding these standpoints for new projects, as David was talking about the wallets, the exchanges, and so on, I think, and that's what I recommend to every project I am collaborating with, is if you want to be super clear, if you want to be transparent, just prepare some documentations, on the front end, basically. And what is happening on the back end, I think it's on the second level, actually. I don't want you to understand it like that the processes doesn't matter, and I don't want to actually provide you with the information that, hey, do whatever you want, but have documentation saying anything. But I mean that from the legal perspective, this front end documentations are the most important if you want to be want to look compliant. Like you just need to provide people with the privacy policies, with the terms and conditions, and actually what can help the projects in a lot of cases, especially in the cases of these meme coins, which are super popular for some reason. I don't know why, but they are popular right now, is to have, things like warranties list, maybe some ethical code, and definitely white paper. And if you have these documentations, it will, provide people with some belief in your project. It will provide the regulatory bodies with some, hey, we are doing it and we are trying to be as compliant as possible. And this effort to be actually compliant is much more important than to be actually compliant on the back end. So that's what I wanted to mention on that kind of topic. Regarding these tax concepts now in Czech Republic, and we have already mentioned it with David, and David was talking about it briefly during his presentation. Right now in the Czech Republic, I think that actually comparing to other European member states, I think that actually we are tax heaven, not only from the crypto tax perspective, but from the tax perspective in general, basically. Either if you are a natural person whose income is taxed by 15%, or if you are legal entity whose income is taxed by 21%, or if you are entrepreneur and if you are operating in crypto, I think the tax scenarios in here and the tax regimes and options which are really, really flexible in the Czech Republic are something which makes the Czech Republic to be tax haven right now. Regarding the crypto tax, what needs to be said is that we do not have any specific crypto tax. We have just general income tax, which can on one hand provide you with some flexibility in between the lines. If you want to calculate the incomes and provide the state with taxes. On the other hand, it's not so legal certain for some service providers, and some entities. But in general, how it's done in the Czech Republic right now, if you are holding crypto for more than 3 years and you pass this time test, then you have no capital gains tax for individuals in this kind of way. If you are selling or exchanging the crypto under the barrier of 50,000 crowns, which is like 2,000 euro for Slovakian guy amongst us, you are off the taxes basically in the same way. If we are talking about taxes, basically it's the same with the capital gains. If you are selling crypto, if you are exchanging it, then this is something which you need to calculate into the taxes. But if you are just investing into crypto, and buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on a weekly or monthly basis regularly, and you are just buying and investing, and then you are holding it for more than 3 years, it's the same as with the securities and shares. Then you are of the capital tax regarding the crypto, basically. Right now, I'm aware of some already crypto-related disputes in the Czech courts, but I don't think that they will end with some satisfactory solution in the following months. I'm still aware of the judges no fully understanding the crypto as well as Web3 in general, and I'm kind of afraid that it will end with some solution which will not be satisfactory and will be very, very unlucky actually. I think that if you would like to set up in the Czech Republic, and that's because why I'm talking about it is because that usually if we are guiding the corporates and guiding the projects through the waters of Web3 ecosystem, they are always asking us where they should be based, where they should be, incorporated. If you would be setting up in the Czech Republic, so there are some pros, there are some cons, as they are in a lot of states. And for some reason, I think maybe because it's the common practice right now, a lot of projects want to be based in Singapore or based in Dubai, basically. From the investments perspective, from the capital investment perspective, I think Dubai is, numero uno. It's like the best way where to be based and incorporated. If you want to focus on the European market, actually, and you would be choosing some member state where to incorporate your company or where as digital nomad to be based and where to move, I think that the Czech Republic should be definitely considered as one of the options where to handle your assets, where to base and incorporate your projects, as it is, for the MiCA compliance, as I was mentioning it. Where the AML can be a little bit tricky and serious, but I think the MiCA compliance pros will prevail. Or either it's through the time test and 3 years holding crypto to avoid the crypto taxes, or it can be, through the general tax haven basically in the Czech Republic, because we have, for example, the option to pay taxes just with one payment per month, where it's included all the social as well as healthcare solutions, as well as the taxes, and you just don't need to provide state with filling your taxes on the end of the year. Actually, you have just one piece of payment every month, and that's it. And it can be really, really interesting for a lot of people coming into the Czech Republic. Right now, I was discussing a few weeks ago some regulatory stance on Web3 regarding MiCA adaptation, in the Czech Republic, it should be adapted. Even its regulation, which is like applicable directly towards the member states and their users, even though if it's regulation, it provides states with some area where actually to be kind of adapted. And right now, Czech Republic is preparing for adaptation of this MiCA regulation, which is expected to be smooth. There are some issues with the Czech National Bank regulation positions, but there is nothing surprising. And as I was reading the messages and the reports, I think that from the MiCA perspective, the Czech Republic will stay as effective as possible towards the crypto in following months and years. I think from my side that should be all as well. If there are any questions in the chat, feel free to ask. If there are not, we can then move to the panel. And yeah, that's it. So if there will be any question, just feel free to send me an email. I will be more than happy to provide you with some answers. And yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honza. For your part, I have a question because, and we are going through LinkedIn, this kind of social media. I'm seeing discussions about MiCA and that we as Europe are quite over-regulated with all the stuff around crypto and like in general. And if we compare this, for example, to Trump, that has his office for crypto, can we see MiCA might be a bit delaying the development of some interesting projects because you have to do some paperwork, you have to prepare, you have to wait for approvals, there will be like a big bulk of requests, it will postpone the things. So what is your perception on this?
Yeah. Actually, it's a good question, but let me start from the middle of what you said, as you were comparing it to the Trump benevolency. Basically, if you noticed what actually Trump benevolency was doing with the market of shares, of securities, it was basically dropping everything down, and it kind of forced the investors to change the scope of their view towards European shares and European securities and so on, because there is some legal certainty for them. They know what to expect. They know what to do. They know what paperwork there needs to be done. They are more than happy to invest in the European shares, securities, and tokens, comparing to the United States, because they don't know what to expect it in there. Yes, it can kind of block the development of the project. It can block the development of the decentralization per se. But on the other hand, if you want to have the development of the projects in some way certain, if you want to have it in some way safe, then there needs to be some regulation. The MiCA is not here to block any activities of this. MiCA is here just to say you, hey, if you want to do this, just provide the people with some transparent information. Just be aware that you should be licensed in some way, and the things should be done in this and this and this way, and that's what you can expect. If there are projects who don't want to be compliant with MiCA, or they are not able to be compliant with MiCA, from my perspective, these projects are something which are not recommended to be participated in, or to be invested in, because they have some issues. Either it can be issues with the tokenomics or transparent processes and so on, but it really depends at the end.
Thank you. David, do you want to add anything to this? Because you were nodding, so I'm just wondering if you had something to add.
Yeah, like probably as someone who has been building companies in crypto, but at the same time I was advising and consulting National Bank in Slovakia when it comes to MiCA implementation. But I would be probably more
Slovakia National Bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would be probably more skeptical than Honza towards MiCA. Of course, I think it still remains to be seen how the actual enforcement will look like. And I honestly, for me, myself, like last couple months, I haven't been in touch with the topic that much. But it was more in the early days, like a year ago, when we were like preparing some filings for different companies and discuss like how actually it could be enforced. So back then, I believe MiCA will kill a lot of businesses in Europe. That's probably the short answer of mine. But in general, probably I have lots of skepticism towards EU. That's one of the reasons why I'm not there anymore much, and why also usually when I build a new company, it's outside of the EU. But yeah, that's a very, very short version of, maybe we can discuss this further.
Yeah. Actually, I can maybe do some opposite argumentation, because I totally agree with you that to regulate something which was born to be unregulated, or which was born because there was overregulated, bodies, doesn't make any sense. But I wouldn't be afraid that it will totally kill the businesses and so on. I think it was same in the case of GDPR. Actually, when GDPR came by, people were super afraid of it. People were frauding with GDPR. They were scaring other people with GDPR and so on. And there were these influences and tendencies like, hey, GDPR is super killing all the platforms like Facebook, like social network and so on. And it didn't happen, actually, because if you were doing the things right before GDPR, you were just in the continuous way of dealing with it in the basically same way, with just slight changes and doing basically the same. I think right now, if you are starting up any kind of exchange, any kind of real world assets tokenization project, you are already building the platform in compliance with MiCA, and you are preparing white paper, and controlling mechanisms and so on. And right now you just have some regulations saying to you that this should be done, basically. But if you are doing it properly, you are already doing it, basically, from my perspective, because there are some levels of MiCA regulation, I would say, which allows people to be kind of flexible in what area of WASP or CESPs basically there will be operating in. But I wouldn't be so afraid of it, actually, from my perspective. If you are right, I don't know. If I am right, I don't know it either. We will see in a few years, but I wouldn't be so fatal about it, definitely. But
I think you mentioned
yeah. Maybe that's my last remark. If you are watching this from the Slovakian perspective, yeah, I totally agree with you. The world is burnout, the world is ending. I totally agree with you. But from the perspective of Czech Republic and Czech legal perspective, I'm a little bit more optimism.
Yeah, that's probably definitely understandable, and I'm also more hopeful about Czech Republic compared to Slovakia a lot. But even though still I have a lot of skepticism towards EU in general, I think you mentioned it, like Tether decided not to be compliant, and I think one of the reasons is that it's very hard to be profitable as a stablecoin issuer under MiCA. So I don't think we're gonna see any meaningful euro-denominated stablecoins in the future, and I think I'm very skeptical towards it. I'm happy to be convinced otherwise, and like let's see. I think we can also see. I'm sure. I know in Slovakia we had like 400 companies that had the trade license to do the crypto. I'm not sure what are the latest numbers, how many of them actually applied for MiCA, and I'm sure we will see in many countries in Europe, in all countries in Europe, like a massive decline, right, of the entities that are on the market. So that's what I think is gonna happen. But like probably we'll find out, I don't know, in a year or two, what's the truth.
Yeah, we will see, definitely.
That was my question for you guys, and anyone would like to add, or a question for Honza for legal part of today. If not, we can smoothly move to panel. Right now, we have 45 minutes for that without break. So because we're talking about DeFi, about legal aspects, and I heard there quite a few times Web3. Can you explain what Web3 actually is? Because it's not only about DeFi, only about legal, but there are like meme coins, communities, and such. So can you explain how do you understand Web3?
Maybe I can start with Honza. You want to?
No, you are first in alphabet. You can start definitely.
Yeah. So Web3 basically I don't think there's generally agreed upon definition of Web3. Some people, slide in to Web3 terminology like a bunch of different technologies, but usually in the context of crypto, it means, this general trend towards decentralization of the web architecture. So I think Chris Dixon wrote a beautiful book on it, Read, Write, Own, and essentially it means this whole trend of actually owning, being able to own digital content, and which represents sort of like this next stage of evolution of the web. So that's how I usually see Web3. Maybe Hamza can add something to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's another level of evolution of the internet. After Web 1, Web 2, and it's logic. It's actually in the name. I think Web 3 is something which brings decentralization. Instead of relying on centralized servers, like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and this big five, basically the applications are built on decentralized networks, on Ethereums and so on, which provides them with more community kind of vibe, which can bring the people more together. And it's more about people building stuff for people than about actually building stuff just for for the income and so on. On the other hand, there are still some big companies like Binance and so on, which are, even if they are Web3, even if they are crypto, they are more like above Web3 because they are not the part of the community. Basically, they are just here to regulate basically, the stuff from some kind of middle decentralized position. But yeah, I totally agree that Web3 is some other evolution, some other it can bring some other technological solutions for people to use, for people to actually help them, in the daily solutions, maybe, and so on. There are some, trustless systems, as well as some native payments and other solutions which can make a lot of stuff easier. And it's kind of natural that these technologies like internet and so on are evolving right now. I'm really interested what the next stage would be. I don't think that it would be based, just on some like pure tokens or something like this. It's more about connection tokens into some other stuff, with some added value and so on. But yeah, we can discuss it in some other questions maybe.
Yeah, because if we see evolution of Web 2 to Web 3, like evolution of like Web 2 was kind of like globally accepted, but Web 3 is still has its gaps. It's still not like everywhere as we saw Web 2, and it may be most like close about the education. That's why we're also here, just to bring the awareness of this area. And I went through some interesting statistics, and it came from Crypto Competency Index, that the financial literacy about crypto is 24%. So if anybody is going on the market, is trading, is like doing any stuff, it's 24%. Why do you think is that? Is it because we are in EMEA now, you are in Singapore, David, and this is completely different world, the APAC, but like, what is the key component, how we can maybe leverage this into bigger context of like really getting more people on board with Web3?
I can start just to switch the positions with David. I think that the biggest issue in Web3 is that it's super complex and super difficult for common people to understand it. As the technologies are evolving really, really fast, the people are starting to lose belief in it because it's not comprehensive for them, it's not understandable for them, and so on. And as we were discussing it in the KYC/no KYC platforms, if you will, and you remember it basically from the project of Muses of Inspiration for the M registry. if you want the mothers, with the babies, if you want them to use crypto, it just doesn't. It must not have being comprehensive. It if you want them to use the crypto, you need to provide them with email based wallets. You need to provide them with super nice UX UI, and for them to use it, the website where can they deal with crypto and buy the tokens, it needs to be totally unrecognizable from the shops basically and stuff like this. Because even though, for example, and that's maybe a nice example, even though QR codes are something which exists like 20 years maybe. QR codes are the technologies which was able to penetrate the public like nowadays basically. This is the technology which is pretty common right now, and it needed 20 years to happen, basically. So if we are dealing with crypto and NFTs which are like hype like for last 5 maybe 7 8 years, something like this, to expect that people would be using it like in the super amount, it's nonsense right now. And if you see all the launch pads for meme coins and other stuff, it's totally not available from the understanding perspective for the common users basically, because they try to won't be the revolution basically of the internet, but the people need to have evolution. If you would skip the part of hybrid cars basically, and you would force people to use electric cars just right away after they will use petrol based cars, they will not accept it. That's the same basically scenario. You needed to provide them with this middle step of hybrid cars, just to explain them, hey, there are some parts of cars being able to be powered by electricity. These parts were bigger and bigger and more important, and then there are some electric cars which are kind of comprehensible, kind of understandable by the people, and they are willing to use it, even though the percentage of users of electric cars is little low, I would say, really low right now. But it's basically the same, I think, from my perspective.
Yeah, maybe I would add something to it, but I mean, it's a complex question, of course, and part of it is historical reasons. Like we are much less developed in terms of financial literacy in general and the capital markets here in this part of Europe. So, and also, of course, it's new technology, and it's like I can also imagine why any kind of new technology is being more scary for people, because the pace of development and evolution of not only crypto but AI and everything, it's really hard to keep up nowadays. And I understand like people, why are they intimidated by that? But I think also one of the factor certainly is that we have, or like the EU has a beautiful European Central Bank that is producing a ton of bullshit when it comes to crypto, commentary and like the way they describe and talk about these things. So I can imagine that's one of the reasons why, some of the people at least still trust the traditional financial institutions, and I think they should not.
They are typing so loud.
Okay, sorry.
It's fine. It will be okay. Like Web3 will eventually get its own way. I would like to add one more.
I'm just I'm used from Google Meet, where there is this silencer for typing basically, and I don't interrupt anyone, so I just forgot to mute myself. Sorry.
I was just on the side, like trying to type here. It's okay. It's fine. So you can start answering next question, which is, and this is also one from the public about AI. I have just basic question, like the crypto AI combination nowadays, but there is nicely described between crypto and AI agents. What is the overall environment impact and how it can be optimized? And maybe I would be interested in your opinion about AI agents in crypto and how we can make this profitable for everyone, not destroying the world and all the visions some people might have.
Yeah. I am aware of that question from the audience, and actually, I was doing my PhD for AI, and AI and IP law, and it's so huge and so difficult topic to actually have it covered from some comprehensive legal perspective. That what I can say after the 4 years of my PhD studies is that I was able to move from the position I don't know what the solutions and what the questions are to the positions I can, after reading thousands and thousands of pages, I can say that I really don't know. I think influence and relationship of AI and Web3 is pretty common and pretty natural, because both are technological phenomenons which are fascinating people with the capabilities, with the options, and so on. If their connection is good or bad, I think it's irrelevant. I think it's natural to use it together, as well as you are using crypto wallets through the internet. Basically, you are using tokens with any other virtual assets and so on. Right now, what I see from my experience on the project is that people are trying to use the AI agents into the Web3 projects, or they are trying to tokenize basically anything with created with the AI. The interesting paradox at the end is that if you are creating your projects with implementing the AI or with the help of an AI, because AI can write, the white paper and so on for all these meme coins launched in 20 hours, basically. The interesting paradox is that you cannot be basically judged for anything, you cannot be sued for anything, because you have always this argument, it was created by AI, basically. So it's in public domain, you are not responsible for anything. It can definitely be, it can make easier building all the projects, it can make it easier for people to do their own research, to help them maybe with some investment opportunities and so on. But more technology you will involve in the projects, more technologies you will involve in your steps and your actions, more you should you should think about the stuff. If you will try to make your life as much easy as possible through the technologies, more you should think about the consequences and about if it's a good idea or not. And I would definitely not rely on AI solutions and outcomes just because they are AI created. I will definitely not rely on the crypto anonymity just because it's popular and so on. I would definitely do the research. And if I anytime it's a hype right now from the investment perspective, if you don't involve AI in the description of your project and a proposal or pitch deck, you are basically not saying that you are on the edge. You are saying that you are unpopular because you have no AI involved and the money are just 50% package of the money at the end. And anytime I see this connection of AI and crypto, I'm talking to myself, hey, it's just a hype. Basically at the end, if the data is processed by some other technologies or AI, if the white paper is prepared by humans or AI, I think it doesn't matter at the end. The ratio is still the same, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with Honda and what he said. I think mostly from the user perspective right now, so there are maybe few AI agents and maybe few AI frameworks for creating agents that are somewhat useful, but mostly I think for people who are really deep into crypto and care about some very automated on-chain analysis and more advanced, I would say, trading techniques. So I see some usage there, but for very, let's say, beginners or people who are not interested in analysis of the markets, I think right now there is not that much when it comes to the combo of AI and crypto yet. Even though there is interesting things, right? We have these AI agents that imitate sort of the famous VC funds like A16Z, and basically have now already the power to behave and the resources to become, they effectively have become first hedge funds, completely AI driven. But again, it's more it's an interesting phenomenon that will be fun to see and to watch how it plays out. but I think that's as far as it gets right now.
Okay. Speaking of trading, we can maybe answer the question from Dimitris. I will put this. You would like to answer this question live. Is staking cryptocurrency safer than trading, or is it dependent to the crypto market's fluctuations?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that. It's definitely safer compared to trading. Yet it's of course still subject to volatility of the cryptocurrencies. So, like you can earn some yield annually, which is denominated in the asset you are staking. But of course, if that asset, loses 50% of the value, so your annual yield will be like 50% lower than you expected. So that's definitely something to take into account. And especially I think as someone who used to trade a lot altcoins, I've seen this trap many times. Many altcoins have very juicy yields on paper, and don't fall for that. Very likely, 99% of them, and also as the history shows, like also now the market shows as well, right? It's a trap, and it's very likely that those yields will, in the end, produce you nothing but loss and no profit. So be careful around that.
So I hope we answered to Dimitris. And when we were speaking about altcoins, there is some like new topic which I see popping up quite often. It's meme coins. Can you explain what is the meme coin to the audience?
Yeah. I'm not sure if Honza wants to. He seems to be eager. From my perspective, it's I would almost recommend to ignore this topic to most of the people. There is nothing good coming out of it. You will just likely lose money, and it's just distraction, and it's not really well spent time, attention, and energy. And there are definitely much better ways to spend it when you want to be in crypto, like how to learn about real fundamental technologies that are reshaping the world of finance. But meme coins are not one of them.
I I cannot more agree with David. I think meme coins, are some hype right now. It's a popular topic. If you will catch the meme coin in a super early stage, then you can maybe make some profit. But anyhow, 99.9% of meme coins are just pump and dump schemes, and it just doesn't work like at all. I don't believe in it. I didn't see any single working project of meme coins. Basically, I would totally advise you to be out of meme coins as much as possible.
Okay.
If you wanted to maybe, Misha, to discuss meme coins in more depth, sorry to ruin it for you.
I wanted like to really raise the awareness that it's not anything like we have altcoins like Solana, Ethereum, and that it's not something to really spend time on. It is something you can maybe watch online, these finding gigs around, but nothing to be really focused, because then you can really lose a lot of money on the market. And if you
Maybe I would just add just a very small point. Yeah, it's bullshit most of the time. But even though, like from a very broad perspective, being a meme is a fundamental value in the world of internet. So so it's a phenomenon, and it's valuable. It brings attention, and attention is valuable. So like Dogecoin, something that has been around for a very long time, and there are maybe a few other examples. So it is in Czech you have a nice word for it, like nešvar of the current internet. But it is reality. But for most of the people, it's definitely wise to stay away and not invest in it. Like it's whatever you invest, you will likely lose.
Yeah, totally agree. Like, yeah.
So
But on the other hand, I don't know why, but uh, every single day in Artifine, where we focus on creating the project, we have to dismiss like 10 offers of collaborations on the meme coins and so on, because is the super hot topic right now. People just try to create it, and just grab the money basically out of the users who don't do their own research and so on. So yeah, it's kind of dangerous right now actually, and I'm pretty sure that if there would be any kind of legal case in the future, it would be based on meme coins, definitely.
So, where do you advise others to start? I highly recommend, because I have coin story at home as well, the printed version. I highly recommend to buy because it's really very nicely written. But online, like how people can start learning about crypto if they are really new, not having this 4 years experience like we do. So what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, I think it really depends, on the nature of the individualities. Basically, I don't want to provide with some investment advice. I
No,
think if you want to play roulette, if you want to play the casino games, you can start with meme coins basically because it's totally the same. You can play for some time there, but you will lose at the end. It's totally the same. If you want to invest in crypto in some conservative way, I would say, and conservative is, in the brackets basically, in some conservative way, I would definitely recommend to invest, in the stable crypto assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe some, altcoins and something like this on some regular basis, week per week, month by month with some small amount, and just to um, try to inspect how the crypto is behaving, what it is doing, what are the areas, and so on. But I wouldn't definitely recommend to grab all your life savings, and put it into the crypto and so on. You just need to invest just the limited amount of money you are willing to basically have deleted from your accounts and so on. But I would definitely start with some small amounts into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on. I would try to inspect how it's behaving, how it's evolving, what it's doing, and what is not. I would definitely start with some KYC and AML based platforms, as we were discussing it with David, because it's much easier for the users to be on board it and to understand it and to believe in it. And afterwards, after they are fully satisfied by what it offers to them and how the portfolio is managed, they can start being discovering what other areas of investments into the crypto can be, what the ways and platforms and exchanges there are, and so on. But if you are a super newbie in crypto, I would definitely start with this from my perspective.
Yeah, maybe I would just add, like, I think in terms of investment, it's very simple. You buy Bitcoin and Ether. I don't think you should do much more than that. And when it comes to like finding information, it's like Twitter is the place to be for the crypto world. So and how to find a good profile on Twitter. I think nowadays everything is a prompt away from you. I think that's probably the best start. And also, like nowadays it's really on one hand very easy to also start because you have pretty good resources that you can, you have basically unlimited advisors that explain you everything you don't understand and what else you can wish, right? So whatever complex topic you have ahead, now you can understand it just if you put some effort into it. So and of course I could name a bunch of like resources and like depends if you like YouTube or whatever, if you are in Czech and you understand Czech, then Kitsom is a good maybe source for Bitcoin people, but not so for DeFi. But yeah, as I said, I mentioned maybe Bankless, so that's maybe one of the sources I would recommend for DeFi people. So yeah, but there are
Yeah.
many.
I think as you mentioned, there is a lot of resources right now, which is different from the internet ages like 30 years ago. You have a lot of different resources, and it's like the biggest pro. But on the other hand, it's like the biggest con as well because you have so many resources that you have to critically think about what you are reading and if it's true or not. Because, for example, if you want to start your sourcing studying by going into the Twitter, just be aware that Twitter is like antisocial sewer, and it's like it's like the lowest point of basically human interconnections ever. There can be some super hot information for investing, but just be aware and think about what you are reading, and just try to separate the good materials and good resources from the others.
There is one more question I would like to ask today, and it's a lot about Bitcoin. Like when I go through questions we have from the documents about Bitcoin, so not to do any shilling or any like advices, but the general, because it really impacts a world situation. How do you see the landscape of Bitcoin for this year? Do you think it's like, because the situation in the world with all the tariffs, regulations, things are changing, is there any way how we can predict it a bit at least?
I think, and maybe it's just my point of view as a lawyer. I think that Bitcoin in 2025 will be likely more institutionalized. With all these ETFs, regulatory clarity in some way, and so on. I think that it still might remain, this conservative investment in the crypto space. I think that it will be more institutionalized. Basically, that's the future in 2025, how I see it. And as well, with the tendencies of, for example, Czech National Bank trying to discuss it as one part of reserves, as well as there are some tendencies from abroad which are trying to do basically the same. So that's my point of view of it.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. So yeah, Bitcoin is being now officially part of the reserves on, as in many United States, and we'll see like how far that will actually go. But like, I think it's very legit asset by now, and I have no doubt that as the price level, and we have a lot of inflation, and the price level will increase, it will pull the prices for many different assets, and Bitcoin definitely being one of them, and probably I believe that Bitcoin's price level will rise arguably much higher in the long term. That being said, to predict anything in the next few months, it's impossible, especially when it comes to price per se. So price-wise, yeah, it can definitely, fall more to 50, 60K. Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. But in the long term, I have no doubts that Bitcoin is basically very useful asset to have, taking into account like the whole geopolitical environment we are in.
Yeah, I can hear from both of you, it still will have some impact on the society and monetary system in the future. And do you have any comments at the end? Because this was my last question. I will ask if we have anyone in the attendees. Do you have any questions? You would like to raise any question for us? If not, Davi Honzo, do you have anything you would like to add for today?
I think that crypto is slowly starting to be, the part of everyday business. Basically, either through the chains inside the banks, for the bigger safe of the payments, either through these crazy meme coin stuff and so on, or through the Bitcoin and the means of payment, basically. Because, for example, in Czech Republic we have this coffee stands where you can buy coffee by Bitcoin, for example, and so on. I think it starts to be more understandable by the people, because there is so many solutions which try to explain it to the people, try to onboard new users, and try to do this in this evolution style as I was describing it. Like you can just if you are buying on Alza the computers, you can just click on paying by Bitcoin, and it's super easy through the third party service. I think Bitcoin will be institutionalized definitely. I think that Mika is here not to ruin the world as we know it. I think it's just the opportunity to do it transparently and kind of unify the efforts of the project. And I still think that the Czech Republic is one of the best places where to base or be incorporated if you are trying to provide the crypto-related services. That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to summarize maybe a little bit what I was talking about. And if there is any question legally related, if there is any questions into the crypto startupping or something like this, feel free to reach out to me. The presentation and the recording of our presentation will be provided. So the email is there and feel free to reach out.
Yeah, if there's something I would add, it's probably because I'm biased because right now I'm here, but I would just probably leave a sort of recommendation for people to maybe read another really great book, which is called The Network State. And you can freely read it online, thenetworkstate.com. And it's actually one of the, or like it's the reason why I just moved to Singapore, because the author of the book is just starting the startup society here. And I think for many people who haven't been that much in in tech maybe, or like even if they are, it will be very, very good reading. It blends together a lot of geopolitics, technology, and finance in a very, very comprehensive way. So it's a highly recommended resource from my side to read for people, and it probably makes you also really rethink a lot of things and a lot of concepts and a lot of paradigms. So that's probably my only and last comment for the end.
So thank you both, and that's a wrap of today's webinar. I would like to thank Expat.cz for the opportunity for us to speak about our topics, and also to all attendees. You will receive email. You will also receive the feedback from, so let us know how you liked it, and hope to see you in other venues. If any questions, you know where to find us. Have a lovely evening and good night, Davi. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.